G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I will be going over the lock and the knock. So yes, I just made this up the other day, but on each line I'll go for one player that I'm locking in to my side and then one player that I've got a couple knocks on. Doesn't mean I'm completely ruling them out of my side, but something to think about heading into the preseason next year. So drop this video today just before Christmas, have a little break, and then um, me and George and JD will be uploading some more stuff in January. So we'll start with the defence, and probably not too much of a surprise to see the name Jake Lloyd here. He's 586k. It's actually the cheapest he's been. I looked for about 3 or 4 years since he became sort of a premium player. So most consistent defender we've had for the last 4 years. Over those 4 years, he's averaged 112 and only missed the one game out of the possible 83. Um, we know what he does. He's the main distributor out of the Swans defence. Takes kick-ins, although he was sharing them a little bit this year. Hopefully, he garners the full load again, or most of it next year. But again, we know got a high floor, maybe not a huge ceiling, but he's consistent as ever. Good for around the 100 mark every week, and then we'll chip in with some 120s and hopefully just end on another 110 to 120 average. Again, I know it was down last year, 107, but I think he can tick that up again next year. Now the knock, I've gone for James Sicily. I do love Sicily as a player. When he sort of first became a premium, I owned him both those years actually. The first one being he was more high scoring, but he did miss a few more games that season. And then he was consistent, but not. I think he averaged 95 in 2019, and then of course we know he missed pretty much most of 2020 and all of last year, or all of last season. A few question marks with him coming back. Obviously off the knee Rico. It has been a while. It's been a year and a half almost. So it's a long time to recover. So you'd think he'd be fully fit and ready to go. But still, off a knee Rico isn't always great. But players are recovering better from them in sort of the modern day. He did play forward at times under Clarko. I looked every season. There was at least 2 or 3 games. He'd play forward whether he started or switched there late, which is annoying. I do remember owning him for one game where he did kick a goal late and sort of boosted his score, but it still wasn't a great one. But we don't know under the new coach if that will continue. You'd think it wouldn't. He's definitely, obviously, best position as an intercepting defender, but Hawks don't have a great deal of key forwards. Cozzy came on a bit this year. Um, They obviously got Jackson Callow, that young kid. Who knows? I assume he will play defence, but it's obviously a question. And there is more mouths to feed. We saw the emergence of a lot of the young defenders at Hawthorn this year when he was out. CJ started off very well the first couple months until he got injured. Impey had a great season, but he is getting on a little bit. Bramble, great young player, maybe pushes up to a wing. Will Day, again. Hardwick takes most of the kick out, Scrimshaw. There's a lot of similar type players that run and carry. So maybe does Sicily play more of a lockdown type of role? Obviously, they still would want him to intercept, but there's just a little, a few question marks over him and his role coming back into the team. And hopefully we get a decent glimpse of what that will be in the preseason, albeit there'll only be 2 games this year and only one televised game, or next year. But yeah, for me, he's a watch for now. I think he only got a 20% discount, which is decent, but if it was 30% and he was 400k, it probably would be almost a lock. But yeah, for me, he's a watch over the preseason. In the midfield, much like Jake Lloyd, the locks are probably not going to be too surprising, but Jack Macrae, just a tick under 700k at 699, 900. Much like Lloyd, he's the most consistent midfielder we've had for the last 4 years. Got there, 125 average he's had over the last 4 years, played 80 of the possible 83 games. And one thing I looked at the fixture, someone noted in the Discord that the Dogs have in the first, because they've only released the first 9 rounds, 6 of them they play the Thursday or Friday, or obviously round one's that Wednesday game. So early VC option for Macrae. Should be able to lock in a 120, 130 most weeks, you would think. And he's in the prime of his career. He's 27 years old, I believe. Just there's not much more to say with this guy, much like Jake Lloyd. He's probably going to be a lock in my team. I don't see me not starting this man next year. in the midfield, the knock, it was very hard to find one of the knocks in maybe the top. You want to have not more of a hot take, but something more serious. But Ollie Wines, the Brownlow medalist, had a fantastic year this year. But I just don't believe he's a genuine Supercoach option. Like that was his best season he's had, average 112, which is back in the day that would have been great. 5 years ago, that would have been in the top 8 midfielders, and you would have been absolutely ecstatic with that. But it's just not the case anymore. We've got 8 to 10 guys averaging 115 plus just this season gone. So I don't believe like the reason he's only averaged around 100, 105 through most of his career. I mean, a lot of the time it was under 100, 98s, 99s. The reason he ticked that up to 112 this year, he didn't increase any part of his game. He just got more of the ball. He just went from, obviously we discount 2020, but it was about 26 touches a game in 2019 and 2018, around that area, and he got that up to about 32 this season. So that was where his scoring came from, just more of the ball. But he is much of a turnover machine. He does average a lot of clangers, a lot of those quick kicks out of a contest. He's a contested ball, so that's his type of role. Um, but I just believe there's better options around the same price or not much more. So for me, he'd be a pass at this stage, and probably for the whole season, to be honest. Um, the rucks, the lock for me, I think the biggest lock out of the main primos for me has got to be Brodie Grundy. We've shown in the past, in the last few years, that he can average over 120. He had a down season this season, just gone, averaging I think 115. But over the last 4 years, or 3 or 4 years, he's averaged 125 just about, and played 81 of the possible 83 games, and he did miss those two. Obviously, it was just this year gone with that neck injury. So he again is in the prime of his career. Obviously, signed that big contract. Maybe that was a part of his first poor season after that in 2021. But he presents a lot of value at the price, 627. I don't believe he's been pretty much less than 700k for 3 or 4 years as well. So yeah, he presents a lot of value, Brodie Grundy, and for me, I think he's the one of the main 3 or 4 that is the biggest lock in the rucks. Now, I did go a little bit skeptical with the knock, but to me, Max Gawn, there's a few question marks over what his 2022 might look like. He will be 30 by the season start, come round 1. Will he get managed more as seasons go by? They're obviously coming off the flag, incredible win, incredible season by them, but that will be their goal for the next couple of years. While Max Gawn, he's probably got 2 or 3 really good years left. Will they manage him more to make sure he gets through those couple of years unscathed? So he's right for finals. We know how well of a big game player he is. So do they lean more into Jackson as the years come on? Because Jackson's obviously a great player in his own right, and just share the load more. Manage Max through the season, make sure he gets to finals fit and firing, and then maybe ramp it up then, or just make sure he's there, because we know what a big factor he can be. So for me, I've got their pass as a starting pick for now. I don't see a world where, or sorry, I do see a world where he's in my team at some point during the season. Whether that's because I start Sean Darcy and he gets injured, who knows? But I don't believe, obviously, Max is completely written off as a pick forever. But I just believe as a starting pick with a few questions, we can sort of just wait and see. And I know Rux is not exactly the position you want to wait and see and sort of be trading in, but for me right now, there's just a few question marks just to make you a bit hesitant on starting him. The other forward line, I think the only one that stands out here is Josh Dunkley as the biggest lock for our teams. Going through his last 3 or 4 seasons, when he came on in that 2019 season as a forward pick for us, he started the season. Bevo was parking him there for about 6 rounds, and then round 7 unleashed him into the midfield, and he averaged 130 from then in those remaining, whatever it was, 15 games or so. Then there has been periods where he obviously got that injury in 2020 to his ankle, missed a bit of the season there, and then whenever he's come back from an injury, either that year or 2021, off the shoulder, he just hasn't got back into that midfield. They obviously have a lot of guys that can run through there, and Bevo, for whatever reason, just whether it's easing him in or just doesn't have the minutes in his legs or in his game, just jump straight back in. He just sort of parks him more forward, and um, that's unfortunate because obviously we know what he can do in the midfield. So contested ball, that's his game. That's where we want him to play. So unless we see any indication that he's not going to be in the preseason, I think we lock him in for this price. It's well underpriced of what he can do. We saw that with the first 6 games of the season just gone, where he was, the highest scoring player, I think, for 6 rounds. So the only other question mark I can have there is the injury question. Is he injury prone? I don't believe he is. That ankle injury. I was the owner at the time. He was on the final sign in 2020, rolled it on the final sign, unlucky, and then the shoulder injury again. I don't believe that's an injury prone type injury, just very unlucky. So they're not soft tissue. Yeah, for me, biggest lock in the forward line. Probably don't need to say too much more. And the only knock I mean, there's a few, but the forward line is always tough at the start of the season. There's always a lot of guys up in the air, but the one I just think has the biggest knocks on him is Tom Hawkins. I mean, he has been very decent as a pick for the last couple of years. 2020 is tough, as a key forward. The scoring in that season with the shortened quarters, the shorter season, as a key forward, taking big contested marks, kicking big goals, I believe he was a bit of a benefactor of the scoring then. I may be wrong, I may be making that up, but just the way it felt, he did manage to score a lot bigger kicking goals and doing, big scoring plays. And then his average did drop off quite a little bit this season. It dropped off by about 10 points per game. He's a key forward. We don't really want to be picking key forwards too much. He does start the season slow. Looking at the past 2 or 3 seasons, he does tend to finish it a lot better. And the Geelong Cats are a bit of an aging team, and all his stars around him, Selwood, Dangerfield, Mitch Duncan. They've got Isaac Smith there now. They're all aging guys, and whether that affects him, I mean, he's a very good old player himself, being 33 and probably had his best 2 or 3 years past 30, which is very impressive. But for me, he's a pass in the forward line. I think there's other guys that have more upside and are just less risky at similar price. So that's the lock and the knocks, guys. I'll see you after Christmas. Enjoy the break, and I'll see you in 2022.